Hey, welcome to Go Bucks. Sorry we're late. I am here in beautiful San Antonio, Texas. I have been here watching my son graduate from Air Force boot camp, so that's why I am in this weird hotel room lighting, weird location. I'm sure the audio is awful, but hey, we got to talk about this Jim Harbaugh stuff and Michigan cheating, all of that. And I thanks Antoine and AMO for having some lively discussion even before the show started. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, but I haven't heard any news. Has something happened?
Yeah, you've been extremely vocal via text and has been itching to actually make some of your opinions known on this. I know. Tell
Well,
me
I mean,
more.
almost the funniest part is just like if you're gonna cheat, do a better job of it, right?
Assuming it's allegedly cheating, the investigation is still going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, it sounds like it's pretty much foregone conclusion that there was cheating. It's just a matter of what level of cheating it is, and whether it's a level two or level one violation. And I mean, everyone keeps going back to whether the coach knew. I mean, I think that basically only is going to determine maybe just a little bit more. I don't know if the crime is more serious that way because I mean, most likely in my opinion, it's going to be a lack of institutional control anyway, and Harbaugh is
Yeah,
going to be
I
gone.
doubt it.
So it just at this point it just matters what I think the NCAA is probably going to want to make an example out of them. They already have people that have. I think the latest news was last night. ESPN actually interviewed some of the people that Stallions was paying to watch the games and videotape for him. So, at the beginning, it was like, well, Michigan didn't cheat. And then people were like, well, we cheated, but you don't have any evidence. And then now there's evidence, but like everyone else does it too, even though we don't have evidence of that. And this whole time, most Michigan fans I've been reading on X have been saying, oh, well, this is Ryan Day's fault. He's the one that got us in trouble, even though there's no evidence of that. And, from Michigan,
Yes,
Michigan fans in my timeline seem to get really mad when there's no evidence, but people are claiming that Michigan is doing bad things, but everyone is blaming Day, even though there's not even a shred, even the tiniest bit of evidence that Ryan Day had anything to do with this. And my prediction is what happened was Weiss got in trouble for computer crimes months ago, and he was fired. Okay, and we don't know. The crazy thing is, we have no idea what exactly he did. There's allegations of what he did. Everyone assumed it was something to do with underage kids or something, and that was the
I
latest rumor
did.
now. And the FBI is involved. It used to just be the Michigan police. Now the FBI is involved with that, and that news came out a day or two ago. And it seems like what a lot of people, including myself, seem to think this whole investigation got started because of that. There was supposedly stuff on his computer also about um, access to a Ohio State database, and apparently Stallions had access to an Ohio State database, and there's some sort of I guess there was supposed to be like 50 hours of Ohio State practice video that they had access to, and we don't know. Apparently, Jay Harbaugh and Stallions had access to it, and that's all we know now. But if that were, like all this other stuff with the scouting is, it sounds bad, but it's in my opinion, it's not like that big
Yeah.
of a deal as far as an advantage. I mean, it's somewhat of an advantage, but if you're hacking and getting people's practice video, I think that's a much bigger deal, and that would be a total death sentence if that actually were to happen. I don't know, that there hasn't been that hasn't been alleged by anyone. I should say it hasn't been alleged by anyone other than just message boards. So that's like the flimsiest of allegations at this point. Right now, the only thing that seems to be certain is, Stallions had been basically telling the offensive and defensive coordinators the signs. He had laminated sheets, which, by the way, is legal, but depending on how he got that information in advance, and that's the whole issue is whether or not he had any kind of um, cheating done and who all was involved with that.
Yeah, and shout out to Jason in the comments. He said we didn't send him the link. Check your text, Jason, if you're watching this, and you'll be able to see that a link, and you can feel free to join, dude. But any case, yeah, I mean, so what does this even really mean? I mean, so if he did something, okay, fine. That let Harbaugh or Michigan get punished for whatever that is. But I think I take exception with like it actually affected some games. I mean, how is that really going to affect games? Seriously, I mean, they can use wristbands, right?
Would they do it if it wasn't affecting games?
No, I'm sure it's an advantage for sure, and they should be punished if they did something wrong. I don't know what the punishment should be, but seriously, what I'm really hoping for is this is going to, for this year anyway, this is going to motivate Michigan, us against the world type of mentality, and it's going to like allow them to actually maybe even perform better, because I just don't think it's that much of it's an advantage for sure, I guess. But have they heard of wristbands?
Can you address Antoine's comment? The loophole. So as far as I don't know how this works in college football, but the rule was you weren't allowed to scout, and Antoine was asking if there was a loophole here. Well, in agency law, the principal, which would be Stallions here, he had an agent, and the agent would be the person he paid to do his work for him. So that doesn't get you off the hook, because that's in agency law, the principal's still liable for what the agent is doing here.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, you can use public information online.
Yeah, public information.
It's. I think the only issue is if they actually paid someone to go and record video of these games, that's an issue. They got to prove that. But if anyone can go out, take a video of the opposing field at Ohio State, let's say, post that on YouTube, and that's free to use at that point, as long as Michigan didn't actually go do it. Now it sounds like they have more evidence. They wouldn't be investigating it to this degree if there wasn't some other evidence.
Did you hear what he did? So what he did was he paid in the article that came last night, and I guess you haven't read yet. So he paid the guy, and he put the recording on a shared iCloud channel that Stallions had access to.
Yeah, and you just have to like sift through the rules, and what loopholes are there? There's always loopholes in NCAA rules, almost always.
And the trickiest part with this for Michigan fans is this. This isn't a court of law, so it's much easier for the NCAA. So even if they think that you did something wrong and they maybe don't have enough evidence to technically, like, let's say this was in a courtroom, they would have some evidence that would be excluded because of hearsay law, for instance. Well, you can still use that for the NCAA because they don't have any of those rules. And also in an American court system, you're innocent until proven guilty. And in the NCAA, the rules specifically say when you're charged with these things, you're guilty until you prove you're innocent. So it's opposite.
Yeah, it is different. Hey, Jason, welcome.
What's up, you bunch of Luddite? Thanks for sending me a text to a link to an email that I now had to copy and paste and then email myself to be able to get in here. I appreciate the ease of access.
Hey, look at the room I'm in and the lighting. This is the worst lighting ever.
Nate, I don't link up through my phone through a text. It has to come to the email so I can use my setup.
Well, it sounds like you have Maryland guy type tech abilities.
I'm not the one who said
and Diego's not here.
A link via text.
And also, Antoine, I wanted to address Antoine really quick. The other problem that Michigan might have here is you're assuming that Michigan is going to fight them. A lot of these university presidents and athletic directors are more concerned with their image of their program than they are with, for instance, being guilty of something. So they see that someone is guilty and they think it makes the program look bad. So they don't want to fight it. They just want to, do the right thing and get rid of the people that cheated. And in the South, obviously they do it differently. You notice in the South, this doesn't seem to ever happen. But in the North, programs like, at least some of the people in the, even in Ohio State, like when we got in trouble, they were voluntarily handing over a lot of things where in the South that would never happen. And I think Michigan is doing the same thing. I think that it's a combination of them wanting to do the right thing because it makes them look bad as a program that they're not going to necessarily defend themselves. And then also there's also quite a big faction in Michigan in whether it was the president or the AD, I forget which one it was. One of them wanted Harbaugh out, and then also Stapleton, who was a big donor, wants Harbaugh out. So, that combination of wanting to look good and wanting Harbaugh out is going to be why I think that there's going to be a limited pushback against the NCAA again in these allegations.
Well,
it might be.
Nate, don't they have all the records of the expenses this guy submitted and was paid by Michigan?
Well, we don't know. No, it was paid from the Venmo account of Stallions. We don't know who. We don't know. There hasn't been a link yet of anyone giving money to Stallions.
No, I thought they had record of him being reimbursed for expenses for tickets and travel.
He was reimbursing the people that went to the games. I didn't see anything about anyone reimbursing Stallions yet.
Well, how did he get his money to reimburse everybody then?
That's what we need to find out. Yeah, that hasn't been made public as far as I'm concerned. I haven't read anything about that.
Yeah, and how deep does the NCAA even have to be able to look at that kind of thing? I mean, again, they're not a federal agency. They're not the FBI, unless he did something illegal.
The FBI is involved, though. At least one of the people.
With Weiss. We don't know if that's...
Yeah.
I mean, probably. So, I feel like that's probably somehow connected to this.
How else? Why else would Michigan be turning over their computers and things like that? And how else would all this information be coming out if the FBI wasn't the one that got all this stuff and sent it to the NCAA in the first place? That seems to be the most believable interpretation of what happened so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, very true. And like Antoine, you're right. Michigan is they've been at odds with academia, and they hold themselves to a high standard, and they're very uppity. Michigan does tend to be that way. And I could see them. Plus, you made a point, Matt, and I'm feeling this way too. I put it in the title. It's time for Harbaugh to go anyway. Not that I don't appreciate all the success that he's had over the last couple of years and this year too.
Those are the years he's been allegedly cheating, Nate.
Yeah, it hasn't. I don't think that's
correlated directly with all of a sudden with Michigan being really, really good.
No chance. But hold on, let me finish my thought on Harbaugh.
Why don't you explain what Michigan was doing prior to all the sign signaling and then what they're doing now? Tell us the difference.
Losing big games and losing to Ohio State, and now winning big games and beating Ohio State. Except against
has there been any other changes? Was their recruiting any better? Did they do anything else differently?
They still have good recruiting classes. The product on the field has been better.
Yeah, but listen to this. Okay, so let's pretend Ohio State's Ryan Day has interviewed with the NFL for the past 2 years. Almost took a job with the Vikings. And
Harbaugh's
then
been interviewing with the NFL since he went to Michigan, I think.
I know. You know what? Let's just pretend that's the case. How much would Ohio State fans want that coach Day out of town? How quickly would they run him out of town? I mean, seriously, I would give whoever, I've heard this on YouTube, another podcast, I'd give them credit if I could remember who it was. But they basically compared it to a cheating wife. Let's say you have the best, most beautiful wife in the whole world or spouse, and they are awesome. But in the month of January, they cheat on you real bad. And then at the end of January, they come back and say, okay, I want to come back and I'm going to be awesome. And they are awesome for the next 11 months. And then they do it again. Then they cheat on you.
They were awesome because they paid somebody else. They paid somebody else to do all the things to make the wife happy. They didn't.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we have to also talk about, how much of an effect really was it? I mean, Michigan took out Michigan State pretty good, and I'm pretty sure Michigan State wasn't giving up any of their signs to Michigan.
Michigan State's given up on the season. They are beaten.
Antoine, I wasn't saying that the cases had anything to do with each other, and they very well could have no linkage at all, because the Michigan police officer did say that the two cases were not linked, it wasn't the same thing. But what I think happened was they were busting Weiss for something else, and then on his computer they happened to see the other stuff that was implicating other people, not that Weiss was doing it, but that Stallions and Jay Harbaugh were doing something else with the, stealing the footage from the Ohio State practice video, the 50 hours there. So they're technically separate things. So Weiss isn't being charged with any of that, in my opinion. We still don't have confirmation for sure what he's being charged with, but that could still technically be true.
I want to talk about some other coincidental evidence at the same time. So not only has Michigan all of a sudden been top tier and winning these big games the last couple of years when all these allegations happened, but also on the TCU game side, when supposedly or allegedly TCU got heads up, spent weeks rechanging all their signs in their fields, and Michigan loses to TCU. Michigan was a better team, and they lost to TCU because I'm going to guess they were trying to rely on stealing all the signs, and it didn't come to fruition for them.
I don't think that's true. Michigan's been bad in bowl games.
There's a couple coincidental pieces there. And
TCU said that too, Jason. They said they used the dummy signs that they were using all year. And then you have a couple of videos looking at the Stallions on the sideline. He looks super confused why it's not working. And especially at the beginning of the game when he threw those 2 interceptions, they were probably expecting different coverages, threw the interceptions. And then I'm guessing because Stallions, I think, is also legitimately really good at decoding like on the fly as well. So I'm guessing that's how Michigan was able to sort of get back into it, because all their codes that they had, limited as they were, like if you look at him, he only had 1 page of codes for the TCU game, whereas against Ohio State, he had like a big booklet. So that's like, multiple games of scouting against Ohio State, whereas TCU, they didn't do any scouting. So he had like limited signals on that game.
No way. You guys are making this out to make like it had so much more of an impact on the game. There's no chance.
Listen,
how bad did TCU
First of all, hold on.
Georgia?
One at a time. So listen. So what is Harbaugh's? What is Harbaugh's record in bowl games? Does anyone?
I don't know. I don't pay attention to Michigan.
He's won one bowl game in his entire like Michigan collegiate
who was that against?
And it was against Florida in his first year. He's lost every single game since.
That's why they had to start cheating.
It doesn't have that much to do with it. People like teams get their signs stolen all the time and they adjust. So I just don't believe that any coaching staff is just going to sit there and let a whole game go by knowing that their signs are being stolen and just let that happen and not adjust. And wristbands, make wristbands something like you want to bring back. No signs with wristbands.
Here's my point. If you plan the entire game, like going into the game, that we know there's signs and that's what we're going to use to help ourselves, all of a sudden you find out you don't have the real signs. There's not enough time to decipher the new things at that point. You're in the game when you find all this stuff out.
Yeah. No, I think that it's much. I mean, even all the coaches, a lot of coaches have come out and said that you still got to execute. I mean, a lot of coaches have come out and said,
in our text group we were talking about Barry Bonds. You still have to make contact with the baseball. Absolutely, you still have to execute.
So the Astros
but you have a leg up.
That's as well. It's different.
They're given an advantage, but you still have to hit the ball.
Yep.
You still have to make a play.
But it's a lot easier to hit the ball when you know what's coming, Matt, right?
Yeah. So just because, for instance, like I think there was one, there's going to be some plays where we have the perfect defense. You can still have a play. You can still make the play against the perfect defense. But one of the other things I wanted to address to Nate was there was another article that came out where they were showing like all of the different schools that they were scouting. So like last year, at the time when the first rankings came out, there was like 8 teams that were ranked for the top 8, and they said that Michigan Stallions had scouted 7 of those teams, and the only team that he didn't scout was TCU, who happened to be the team that beat their ass. And then also they gave information to South Carolina to help them beat Tennessee, because they didn't want Tennessee. They probably didn't want to play Tennessee in the title game in the playoffs. So South Carolina, the entire time that their coach has been coaching in South Carolina, he had never worn the hand codes for calling plays, and they did against Tennessee and beat them because they had the scouting report from Michigan.
Yeah. I know all of that bad tackling by Ohio State was all because of the signs were being stolen.
The
Ohio State corners fell down because Michigan had the sign.
Nate,
So
one game does not
let's
mean
just not
Michigan
do
didn't
that.
cheat with a team that played bad or got outmatched. That doesn't mean
Agree.
that you can't wipe out the cheating for that.
Agree. If they cheated, they need to be punished for it. Not disagreeing with that. I'm disagreeing with the impact on the actual games that it probably
And
had.
I will
Because
say
listen to
Ryan
Matt.
Day.
He's got
Ryan
some
No, I
Day
sort
mean,
of.
makes this team tough.
for instance, Nate was talking about when our corner fell down. Now, granted, part of it is players. We did have like on our
Just part of it.
Yeah, a lot of our players last year were not nearly as good on defense as this year. They're more experienced now, and some of them are just different players. But our defense is clearly better this year. But the other thing is, so let's say you're JJ McCarthy, who is not, he hadn't been lighting the world on fire last year, but he was just efficient. But against us, he knew when we had a particular blitz on. So even though it's still a hard play for him to make, like he was able to make that play, that hard throw to the left where our corner sort of got turned around. If he doesn't know that play that it's a blitz, then that's a huge advantage to know that the blitz is coming. He might have been
Antoine.
You're assuming they always did.
There we go. Hey, Antoine, that says a lot about Michigan when they were cheating and knew what happened and still barely won.
No. He's talking about TCU. I think he barely lost. Because Matt said they beat our asses. But yes, they did on defense.
It's TCU.
Yeah.
And then TCU lost like 65-7 or something, right? Against Georgia?
Well, they got crushed by Georgia, of course. Different matchup. So
Michigan should have won that game against TCU. They had better players at almost every position. I would argue quarterback might be even.
Yeah, and you know what? I've rewatched the Ohio State-Michigan game from last year a gazillion times, and the reason Ohio State lost is because they only scored 3 points in the second half, and CJ was off in that game. There were some third down passes that were right there. The guy was open. He could have hit them, and they just did.
Was more physical the last 2 years on both lines,
Yeah.
and that also led to it too. Ohio State was not nearly as tough.
Your lines, in my opinion, your offensive line the last 2 years is the best you've had in 20 years. So that's a big part of it. I mean, you've had an unbelievable offensive line, especially your center, and thank God he's gone this year because he was making your whole team last year. Like all those big runs, everyone's like, oh, that running back must be really good. Well, guess what? Your center is gone this year, and your running back is averaging this year. Your star running back, Edwards, is now averaging like 3.3 yards a carry now that he's gone.
Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with signs either. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Edwards. I don't know what's going on with them at all. But you know what? We're going to find out because the last part of Michigan's schedule here is going to be real hard. They've got Penn State and Ohio State and Maryland coming up.
Yep.
So
you guys always throw Maryland as tough matchup. God, you guys got to stop that. When do they ever prove to be a tough matchup?
Compared to the rest of the Big Ten, they're
I get it. The Big Ten sucks. There's like 2 decent teams. I get it. I don't even think Penn State's that good. They play one team, Ohio State, and get stomped.
Penn State's like half of a good team. They have a good defense, but their offense is not very good.
But they have James Franklin, so that's always
that's a huge disadvantage.
Always. Yeah, and I mean, I know we didn't talk about the last Penn State game versus Ohio State, but wow. Penn State is nowhere near as good as I thought.
Wait a minute.
And I think
Ohio State had the best score prediction in your show right before that game.
Oh, yeah. You should probably give you some props for that.
You know why? The only reason Jason beat me was because he righted my ass. He beat me by 1 point. I picked 17-14. He's like, I'm going down by 1.
Price is right. Yeah. One penny, a penny. $1.
Exactly. But we got to talk about these upcoming games for Michigan. The hardest part of their schedule is coming up. So if Michigan loses to Ohio State or Penn State, I'm sure the narrative is going to be, oh, they didn't have the signs. But if this motivates,
if Ohio State loses this year, then Ryan Day is going to be on the hot seat big time. You are correct.
If he loses, he should be out. It is no longer acceptable to lose 3 years in a row to Michigan and Ohio State.
I agree.
Very true. And you know what? If Michigan does win and this motivates them, which is a very distinct possibility that Michigan, the coaches use this to say, oh, you guys just suck. It's only because you had the signs. You know what? It motivated them against Michigan State. If it does against Penn State, look out.
It didn't motivate them against Michigan. Michigan State is dead. They're DOA the whole season.
Antoine is talking smack about our close game with Indiana. How was JJ last year? He had a lot of close games in his first year starting too. That was his first year, and he wasn't even starting yet.
And McCord's not all
was
that
going
good.
back and forth with Brown. I agree he's not nearly as good as CJ, but JJ wasn't good at the beginning either. Like this is his second year. He's a seasoned quarterback.
Yeah, and you know what? That contest between did Ryan Day screw up by not taking JJ? I mean, clearly he did, because JJ's never been as bad as McCord. I would say. I mean, they both have
Well,
deep
his
ball
numbers,
problems.
McCord's not
but
bad.
numbers
He's
are good.
average.
McCord hasn't ever looked that.
No,
JJ
he
never
has
looked
not
as
been
average as
impressive.
McCord, though.
His stats are
McCord,
good.
Yeah, his
Stats are
stats, his first year
His
stats
stats
are
aren't
better than
bad.
JJ. His stats
But-
are better than JJ's first year stats.
But a big but here, and I know Nate likes those, but it is to the eye, he doesn't look impressive. His stats are good, but when you watch him play, you don't walk away
agree.
like, holy shit, like those are great throws this guy's making.
He doesn't make enough good throws.
No.
Yeah, and you know what,
Lots of
Antoine,
throws
you're
on his
right.
back foot.
We were watching the quarterback for Michigan State run to the sideline to get the plays, and it didn't help them. It didn't hurt Michigan. It didn't help
Well,
Michigan State. So,
doesn't have
hey,
Michigan State doesn't have a coach, and Michigan State is like maybe one of the worst teams in the country. So yes, you don't need science to beat Michigan State.
They're
Very good.
demoralized. They have no talent and demoralized. Yeah.
hey, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean the only reason they have 2 wins is because that was when they still had their coach. And even at that point, that was still like a bad team. But now they are a bad team and have no coach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll see how Michigan plays against Penn State. That's like the big test right now.
Yeah.
Dude, how bad did Drew Aller look against Ohio State? Like,
Terrible.
He was terrible. Yeah. He had time in the pocket a lot of times, and he was
his
throwing
first
it
big
like
game,
Bowserman
and he crumbled.
throws.
His first big game, and he crumbled.
Our pass rush rate against them was really good. So we had the most sacks of the year against them, and we had our pass rush was getting to him every play. So even when a lot of those throws were looking bad, a lot of times he did have pressure in his face.
Yeah, and that's true, Antoine. I mean, that's an issue, isn't it, with Ryan Day not getting his previous quarterback, or upcoming quarterback ready to play? Should have been giving him some real reps instead of just garbage 5 minutes left in the game.
I 100% agree with that. I think the only reason that he didn't get more reps is because they were the last few times we've had like the quarterbacks. I think Ryan Day is trying to give him as much time in the game to push his stats to win a Heisman. And I think that's why. But I agree. They need to be – people have been saying this for years. Like Ryan Day doesn't get a good enough job, not just at quarterback, but a lot of other positions that, we're not rotating some of the younger guys in enough when it's a big blowout to get them a chance to play.
He needs to give up the offensive play calling. Like if you're a head coach, I hate when head coaches take on other roles. You're a head coach. It's like being the CEO of a company. That's why you have a COO, CFO. You got to do that. I do not like when they're defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators, and Ryan Day needs to give up the offensive side
a little bit. And AMOs, you're right too. I mean, JJ looked really good at the beginning of the year with terrible competition last year. Then in the middle, he started like they were trying to practice his deep ball, which didn't work out well. And then he exploded in the last 2 games of the season. Not TCU. Well, even TCU he did, even though with his mistakes. But yeah, he didn't. And I know defending McCord is difficult. He ends up, like I said this via text to you, Matt, last week. Like McCord looks terrible during the game. But then I'm always shocked to look at his final numbers, and he completes like 60%.
He has the best wide receiver in the country on his team.
That helps too.
Good receiver, tight end. That's why.
You know what I would say, JJ, too. While that's a good point, I think the fact that look what he did against Penn State. So he was without his top running back, and he was without his Emeka, who is also a first-round receiver. So granted, he still has Marvin. He still had Farmer Gronk, which is more than most teams have, and can probably explain a lot of the reason why he was still able to put those numbers up. But he was doing it without a lot of his weapons.
I know, but he also missed a couple key throws too.
No, he did.
Led to 2 or 3 more touchdowns.
100%. And he made a lot of bad throws. The receivers are always sitting there waiting for the damn ball.
Yep.
Because he never leads them ever.
No.
It's his deep ball is like the worst.
It's really bad. You're right. And he did make one really good throw in the tight coverage, and that was it.
Yep.
And that's the only time I ever looked at a pass like, wow, that was really good. Like,
that's
what I'm saying.
One good throw game. I agree. It's not
does not inspire confidence.
He is not. And it's weird. It's like, how is he still winning these games? Like that throw he made to Emeka against Notre Dame at the end. He had like all his 3rd and 4th downs to somehow come back and win. Like, I would have never guessed he would be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
That was incredible. So somehow it's like a combination of he seems to be really good at making plays when he needs to, But other than that, he's just like through a lot of the game, he's just looking bad.
Well, they won a national championship with Craig Krenzel, so anything's possible.
Krenzel could run though. Krenzel was a runner.
Rhymes with Denzel.
You know, he was the leading rusher in the championship against Miami. He was the leading rusher on both teams. Krenzel.
Yeah, and you know what, Marvin Harrison. Yeah, Antoine. Marvin Harrison was sort of shut down by Will Johnson when they put him on it. But even Marvin still ended up over 100 yards receiving. Like it's like they just kind of shut him down from being.
If he doesn't get over 100 yards receiving
impact.
in a game, shame on the coach. Like there's no reason he should never have less than 100 yards in a game ever.
He and Ibuka last year had over 100.
Matt, what I want to say is, like, in the red zone, they seem to struggle a little bit. Why don't they throw more fades and jump balls to him? Like, that seems like
I would do that first down, second down, third down.
Yeah,
fourth
why
down.
don't they do that? It's stupid. They run stupid shit and they bring that other quarterback in.
Yeah, well, the other quarterback was working fine until he got destroyed and got injured.
Throw the fades, throw the jump balls to Marvin.
Yeah,
it's that easy. Why don't they do it?
Yeah.
Why?
Michigan's not going to let them do it this year either. Antoine's right. Like they're just gonna let them like throw like a lot of the inside plays and let them march down the field and then make them fail in the red zone. Essentially, it's kind of like what Michigan's done to them the last 2 years. But we'll see how Ryan Day responds to that. I think you're right. They should just throw it up anyway. He's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Right? Yeah. Like, who's going to stop him?
Not just Marvin. I mean, Emeka too. Like they're both ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Grunt. Guess how many drops our tight end has this year? 0.
Well, thankfully, your quarterback McCord only he does throw accurate passes. When he's accurate, receivers are great. But obviously, when he's not, even Marvin Harrison can't catch some of those passes against Penn State. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see how it works.
AMO, yeah, that's a great comment by AMO. Is like he really does. He falls back a lot and stuff on his
all
throws.
the time.
Yeah, it's terrible. That's why he has no
all the
accuracy or
time.
power.
He doesn't step into his throws. He doesn't he doesn't know how to step up in the pocket yet.
Or he's afraid of getting hit.
The good thing is like it really helps having the Michigan game at the end of the year, because when you have a new quarterback you're breaking in, like if we would have played Michigan the first half of the year, they would have probably smoked us. But because we're playing at the end of the year, McCord is going to have some time to get some experience. So at least it'll be a fighting chance there, because right now Michigan does look like the best team.
Hey guys, I got to catch a plane, so let's wrap this up here. But let's talk real quick about this upcoming game with Ohio State and Wisconsin, because I know Michigan's off this week. But is there maybe any hangover? It was a huge game with Penn State.
Over by halftime. Wisconsin's over by halftime. Average. Yeah.
Well, Jason was the most accurate on the score prediction last week, so let's see how he does now.
I'm going to make Jason pick his score first this time.
28-17.
28-17? Okay.
Oh, and one thing, Antoine was right. It was not Will Johnson that Marvin scored the touchdown on last year.
Yeah.
That was, I can't remember the dude's name. He went to the NFL early. Or went to the draft early.
I blame your coach for not having Will Johnson cover him the entire
Antoine's
game.
a Michigan fan, right? Is this what he's
yes.
a Michigan fan? God, I liked him too. He's a handsome guy in his photo, and now I'm going to have to dislike him.
You're like Diego now.
Well, you gotta give somebody a compliment before you insult them. So
good Lord,
you gotta balance it out.
No, well, Jason sent his kids to Ohio. You sent your kids to Ohio State.
No, I didn't send my kids to Ohio State. They chose to go there. I had no ties to Ohio State.
Terrible parenting.
It is terrible,
but
they had scholarships to every other school to go to, both kids, and they chose Ohio State, who's chintzy because they're paying off their coaches and players. So.
No, okay. But anyway, let's get back. Sorry, let's get back to Wisconsin. Let's hear the scores. I think we could see maybe a little bit of a drop off. Maybe keep calling him. I want to call him Kyle McCrenzel now because someone said that. And I'm stealing that. But
that's a great nickname.
Denzel's better than.
You know what though? That's sort of like it should be more of a Bosserman than Krenzel, because Krenzel at least had a good running game.
Well, what about Justin Zwick? We forgot about him.
Oh, he's so bad. It's not even like that. That's just a rude comparison.
His passes look like mine, all wobbly.
Yeah, Bosserman was the guy who threw him all over the place, sort of like McCord. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if we've had a quarterback that just is like always like throwing off his back foot and just hoping that the receiver can make a play every time.
Hey, Bosserman didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr.
like this before.
That's right.
But anyway, let's get to our score prediction, Nate. Who do you think is going to win?
Oh, Ohio State's going to win. This is at Wisconsin, right? But I predict maybe a lazy first half for Ohio State, and it could look ugly. But Wisconsin, I think their quarterback is out, right?
Yeah, but their backup looks almost as good or better than their other guys,
But-
so I don't think it matters.
That's not saying a lot. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's a night game. I'll be home. I'll be able to watch it. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm thinking Ohio State 34-17.
Okay.
All happening in the fourth quarter. Like 50% of the points happen. 75% of the points happen in the second half, probably.
All right.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm going to go with 48-10.
Damn.
Good Lord.
Right.
You think they're going to score 48?
Sorry, 40. Let's see, 41-10. Sorry, 41. I meant 41.
That's
I
possible,
don't
I
think they're
guess.
cracking 40.
Yeah, I think they're going to do really well because we're getting Henderson is back, he's finally healthy, Emeka is back, Burke is back, so our defense is just going to be completely ridiculous, and then the offense, there's just too many weapons. Even McCord should be able to put up huge numbers against them, and their defense is not that good either. So really, like this game, just 100% comes down to can we stop a really good running back on Wisconsin, and usually we have. I think in all the games in the last decade, the only time that they were able to run against us was in one of the, I think it was the Big Ten championship game where we were losing at halftime and came back to win. But like we've always been really good at stopping their running game.
All right, JJ. Then we can talk about what Antoine just said because I agree with him on this one. What's your score prediction, JJ?
28-17. I was first.
Oh, you were first. 28-17.
Matt, was I
you're in the
first, or did I
40s?
imagine?
Yeah, you were
giving that
first.
Score? Okay.
I think I
thought maybe I perhaps had a stroke, and
or maybe we're trying to figure out how to use text again. But anyway,
if you want to run a professional podcast, don't send links via text. Damn it.
well, that's
Email.
all I could do on my phone since
Your
I
phone
am in
has
the airport.
email. Your phone. Has
It
email.
wouldn't. StreamYard wouldn't let me send an email, or I would have. But in any case, okay, that sounds good. But yes, Ohio State does have a lot of information. I don't know where they would have gotten the pictures of that Stallions dude on the sideline without them actually taking the pictures and going through and sending it. So yes, I agree. And
here, I'll tell you where
Ohio
they got the
State is
information.
absolutely supporting the investigation, driving the investigation. I'm totally
there's no
agreeing with
information.
that.
There's no evidence that Ohio State's given the NCAA anything. What we have so far is when these allegations first came out, you have a lot of people like Tony Gerdeman, him and Tom were both basically. I was listening to their podcast. They were just going back in their archives and looking for pictures and videos of their, and everyone is just sifting through like pictures because they're professional cameramen at the game, and they're looking through their photos and they're posting all the stuff that they've found.
Yeah.
It's not propaganda if it's true, Antoine.
And they could be actually just sending it to the media too. That's likely a lot what they're doing. Sending it to the NCAA.
Schools outside the Big Ten have been collecting this information and now sharing it.
Yeah, very true.
It's not just Ohio State. You can't blame Ohio State.
Guys, I have to wrap it up. I have to actually catch my plane here pretty soon, so I'm going to wrap
Good luck.
it up.
Travel safe. Hey, congrats to your son and to you.
Thank you very much.
Very proud of you guys.
Air Force family now. Yep. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks everyone in the chat for all your awesome conversations. I loved it. And we'll talk soon. Go Blue.
All right. Go Bucks.